of Singularity University. Rob, it's great having you here. Thank you so much for joining the call.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Rob, tell me a little bit about what is Singularity University and why did you join? 2 years ago, I met Singularity University and I blew my mind and it really totally changed my life. But many people don't understand exactly why. So could you explain what Singularity is about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Singularity University, there's a running joke that Singularity University is really not about the singularity, and it's not really a university. We are a very interesting institution that is looking at helping leaders around the world understand this exponential pace of technology, but also to take that knowledge and apply it to solving humanity's biggest problems. So we are sort of one part educational think tank and one part accelerator, hands-on hackerspace. So we've got a lot of programs that we're running on an international scale, but then we also have a lot of resources and mentors and funding that we're deploying on actual projects that we believe are going to transform the future that our kids are going to be living and we are going to be living into. So I can give you the reason I'm here, and it's probably very similar to your story, where I'm an entrepreneur and an engineer, so I like to build stuff, and I had built a pretty successful startup company building robots and automation systems for drug discovery and cancer research. And over the course of about 10 years, built a very successful company in a relatively small space, but we made a pretty good name for ourselves and ended up selling that company to Agilent, and worked at Agilent for a couple of years as a general manager. But when I left, I thought I was retired. I thought I was, an expert in robotics and an expert in biotech, and I was super successful, and I kind of knew everything that was happening in technology space, right? And then I met Peter Diamandis right after they had just started Singularity University, and they just run the first summer program. And he's like, hey, we're going to run these week-long executive programs. You should come take a chance. And I was like, great, I've got some free time, I've got a little spare cash. So I go to this week-long program, and I am, like you said, totally blown away, but incredibly humbled also, right? So I just felt like I retired successfully from an amazing experience with this robotics company. And then in the course of this 1 week program at Singularity University, I find out things that are happening in robotics and that are happening in biotech that I didn't know about. And it really hit me very hard because I thought, hey, I'm this expert in robotics and biotech. How is it that I don't know about these things that are already happening? And worse than that, like, I'm a geeky Silicon Valley engineer who, like, I buy all the latest gadgets and, I pay attention to all the forums. And yet there are still so many big implications of these things, and it's moving so fast that even the experts in these spaces have a really hard time keeping up with the overall pace. And so for me, I completely fell in love with the mission of the university and the people and the approach, right? The programs that we run are very intimate, so there's a small group of people that really get to learn about these technologies, get inspired by the breakthroughs, but then we go into deep discussions about the potential implications of these new capabilities we have with synthetic biology. Like, what does it mean to have a software app that allows you to re-engineer the genomic code of an organism and then create a new organism and have that capability in a format that, like, an 8-year-old kid can do in a garage? And first of all, that just is mind-blowing. But second of all, nobody knows that technology really exists. Not just the public, but even like regulatory agencies and politicians. And there's some pretty big potential negative implications of having capabilities like this if they're put in the wrong hands. And we are completely unprepared to deal with that as a society. And so Singularity University is the one place where we come together to talk about not just like where technology is going, but the potential big, amazing opportunities that come out of it and the implications that we're going to need to deal with if we want to create a future that we actually want to live in. And so, a big part of our goal is to bring together corporate executives, entrepreneurs, government agents, thought leaders, social leaders, finance leaders, all in the same forum to look at these trends and discuss the implications on our industries, on our lives, on our personal lives, and on our whole society, so that we can figure out what to do to stay ahead of this exponential curve. All of our infrastructures, all of our regulatory systems, our economic system is based on a world hundreds or thousands of years ago when the capabilities of technologies were dramatically different. And things are moving so fast that those systems can't keep up. And so Singularity University is basically the forum that's really trying to get people talking about and first and foremost being aware of where this could be taking us. So there's a lot of business opportunities, but there's also a lot of sort of implications on education systems and health systems and economic systems that we need to be talking about now. Otherwise, we're going to kind of be hit in the face, and we're going to have some major problems.
Amazing. So could you tell me a little bit about what are these technologies and how can they be used to make a better future, and at the same time, what are the threats that we need to prepare for?
Yeah, we could talk about that for 7 days or even 10 weeks straight, because there's a lot to go into there. But what we have done is we've classified what we call the exponential technologies. And so it really starts with computing, processing power, and networks. Those are sort of underlying structures that are driving a lot of these. And actually, I'll back up a little bit. The university really was inspired by Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Near, where Ray looked at Moore's law, which really talks about the doubling of price performance of computing power. And he actually shows that the key driver here is the fact that computing is in an information-enabled state. So we went from analog technologies to digital technologies, where there's an information layer that empowers all of the technologies. And so that information enablement is what creates the exponential pace of these technologies. And so with Moore's law, we see the doubling of price performance, but we have the same information enablement of robotics, of artificial intelligence, of nanotechnology, biotechnology, synthetic biology, digital manufacturing and 3D printing. And so we sort of classified those as the core exponential technologies. But then we have several other application tracks that are focused on the other important social and sort of societal layers. So we have a track on policy, law, and ethics, one on finance and economics, one on design, one on entrepreneurship. So these are it's not just about technology for technology's sake. It's okay, if you come up with an amazing solution with technology, there are going to be regulatory and social barriers to adoption of any great idea. And so we have to spend just as much time of discussing how do you take this whole synthetic biology concept and convince the public that it's something that they want, because nobody's going to buy meat grown in the lab, because that sounds icky and weird, unless you find out that it's far higher quality control, far more efficient, far better for the world. And so there's a lot of education that has to go along with it. So the exponential technologies are those that are moving the fastest. They're moving exponentially. And then we talk about what we call the grand challenges. And these are the biggest problems we think are facing humanity over the next 30 years. And so we have food, water, energy, climate, global health, education, poverty, and I'm missing one. And space. Space is a really important one, because the future of humanity really is off planet, because there's lots of resources, and that's where we're going to be exploring. So we have this interesting blend between how do we look at those exponential technologies and actually apply them across all of these grand challenges. And so we spent a lot of time with this concept of convergence. So it's how do these overlap in new ways, which create different types of breakthroughs and new implications overall. So the one other thing I'd love to just share is, so Ray's book, The Singularity is Near, is sort of the intellectual inspiration behind the university. The other big, and so that's sort of the mind of the university. The other core element is Peter Diamandis' book, Abundance, which he just wrote about 2 years ago, but I think really captures the heart and soul of the university, the real optimistic spirit of the future. And if you haven't read it, I'd love to just share the opening story of this, because I think it really captures our spirit and the essence of how we think about the future. And so, Peter, his book Abundance, starts with a story about a big lavish dinner that Napoleon III hosts for the King of Siam in around the 1840s. And so this is a big deal. So Napoleon III has this big table spread, and for his generals and his heads of state, he serves with silverware. For himself and for his family, he serves with goldware. But for the King of Siam, who really is like that most revered of guests, he serves with aluminum. Because in 1840, aluminum is like the most precious material you can find. Despite the fact that it makes up more than 8% of the planet by weight, you just can't find it naturally, right? It's locked up in bauxite, in silicon oxides and bauxite. If you then fast forward like 35 years from that dinner, along comes the discovery of this technological process called electrolysis, which allows you to cheaply and easily extract aluminum from bauxite, making it an abundant resource. So we transitioned this scarce, incredibly expensive resource into an abundant commodity that we now have in every part of our lives, that we recycle, reuse, and it really is a cornerstone commodity of almost every part of our lives. If you take that same story and that analogy and you look at the grand challenges, the biggest problems facing us in the future, and let's start with energy, because that's probably the biggest of them all. If you solve the energy problem, everything else gets a lot easier, right? How we grow food, how we transport ourselves, pretty much everything we do on a day-to-day basis is based on energy. And energy currently is largely a scarce resource that we dig out of the ground. And so it's a very valuable resource. And you know, there are countries and there are huge corporations, and we fight great wars over this scarce resource. Now, all of that happens despite the fact that if you look outside, there is more solar energy that hits the planet in an hour than all of humanity uses in a year. We don't have an energy problem. We have an energy capture and storage problem that you can very easily see a technology unlocking, making that incredibly scarce resource abundant. Now, is this going to happen next year or in 5 years? Probably not. Is it going to never happen? Definitely it will happen. Guaranteed we're going to solve this problem, right? We will have energy that is virtually free. Is it in our kids' lives, in our grandkids' lives? There's a lot of speculation about that timing. More importantly, it will happen. And if you look at the exponentially decreasing price of solar PV panels over the last 5 years, that'll give you an indication of maybe how soon it might actually come. Even in the interim, before it gets to free, it's going to have an incredibly disruptive effect. And so we're already seeing solar being cost competitive to all other energy sources in several regions of the world. So it's already starting to have a disruptive effect on other energy systems. Is society even remotely prepared for a world where energy, alternative energies, are cheap enough to displace fossil fuels? I would say not even remotely, right? Our economic system is largely underpinned by the cost of energy being fairly expensive. And we need to start planning ahead to shape the pillars of society and our economic structure and how we function to deal with the realities of where technology will take us. Because when energy becomes, we have the ability for energy to be free, we want it to be free. We want to capture it. We don't want to fight over certain small groups trying to retain control and power and money. We want it to be spread and abundant throughout all of the world for all of humanity to benefit. And so we take that same analogy across all of the grand challenges, and exponential technologies could be the core to unlocking all of them if we have the personal, the political, and the social courage to do so.
Amazing, Rob. I think that by now everybody should have clear, it should be clear for everyone that Singularity University is not about technology, but about how we use technology to make a better world, and how do we prepare the speed of, or the velocity of the change that is coming our way. So let's bring this discussion to Latin America. In Latin America, one of the biggest challenges that we have, significant poverty, and one of the solutions that we propose for that is you should not be worried too much about that, because we have plenty of natural resources, and those are going to be very scarce in the next decade. So we should continue betting on natural resources. What would you say we should be thinking about in the face of the technology tsunami that is coming our way? How can we address our issues, and how can we prepare in Latin America for this kind of changes?
Well, I think the story of abundance, and just reading abundance to capture this slightly different perspective of what the future could look like, is a good indicator of maybe where we should be putting our efforts, right? To plan on a future that holds so tightly to resources being scarce, and natural resources are incredibly scarce, right? Unfortunately, that means they're very valuable, and that will propel a lot of people to power positions or to be incredibly rich. And so, unfortunately, that means there's value and power in the hands of a few. And those few very much, they'll probably fight and not like to see the democratization of technology create more abundant resources for the populace and for everyone else. But I think at this point, there's really no going backwards. Technology is on an exponential path and is becoming democratized and is getting in everyone's hands. And so I think for Latin America specifically, I don't see anything, truthfully, I've had the great benefit of being able to visit pretty much all parts of the world and interacting with a lot of people to talk about technology and society and the future that we want to create. And we all have the same vision, right? We want to live in the world where we feel secure, we have all the things that we need, and we want to be able to be inspired and be able to inspire our kids to proceed and progress in their own humanity, and not fight over scarcity and scarce resources. So anything we can do to help put more of these technologies in the hands of kids, give them access, I think is the right direction. So a few specific things: education, access to the internet, number one by far, right? It's actually getting to be, it's much cheaper and cheaper now. And every day it seems like there are new solutions. The Google Loon project with putting high-altitude balloons with Wi-Fi transceivers on them and floating balloons around the entire planet, or Facebook launching drones with Wi-Fi transceivers. Every municipality is talking about how to get Google Fiber or other super high bandwidth type things. All of this basically means the bandwidth, the Wi-Fi is going to be there, and it's going to be cheaper and cheaper and eventually free for everyone, more or less, right? There's probably some cost with regard to advertising and other things, but I think that's a small price to pay for the access that we get. But the access creates something wholly different. And so the next layer is an open-mindedness to collaboration. So I think anything we can do to get communities to work together, to collaborate, and to really share resources, and to work together to support and mentor crazy ideas or moonshot ideas, is what's going to dramatically propel any kind of economic revolution in any community. And so one of the goals of Singularity University in our endeavors to work on an international scale is to really become active catalysts in every city. Truthfully, right now we have ambassadors in about 45 countries. Ignacio, you are one of the great ambassadors that we have there. in Argentina, and just truthfully all over South America. You've really done an amazing thing for us.
Thank
And
you.
we want to rally the communities around what you have there, right? So you've got unique resources in Buenos Aires and all over Central America. So how do we South America? So how do we actually get involved with that? And so one of the things that we're actively doing is we're starting to we've been launching global impact competitions, and truthfully, there's sort of a couple reasons we do this. One, we're trying to find the best ideas and some of the most amazing entrepreneurs all over the world, and so we launch competitions, come up with ideas to positively impact millions of people in your city or country in the next 3 years, and the winners, the best ideas, get full scholarships to our programs. And so that's an easy way for us to sort of find great people to come to our programs. But underlying that is our intent to bring together a bunch of different groups, specifically entrepreneurial communities, the government groups who are interested in economic development and entrepreneurialism, and corporate groups who have incredible resources that can support and mentor startup activities. And so what we're finding is through a small competition in a local region, you can find hundreds or thousands of people just they come out of the woodwork because everybody's got an idea of how things could be better. And if you inspire them with the capabilities of exponential technologies, now you're talking about making a real idea that you could apply and truly impact millions or billions of people in no time. So in Brazil, we had like 1,200 people compete last year for this competition, and I'm expecting that to continue to grow. And so what we want to do is continue to help foster those communities. We don't want to create Singularity University around the world. We want to have Singularity University be tied to all the amazing communities around the world and then help tie them to one another so that in 5 years, say, let's have 20 or 40 innovation hub communities that have competitions, they have just a blooming entrepreneurial community with lots of investors, lots of government support, lots of corporate support, so that it's just a super active community that not only is starting startups in that local region, but is connected to all of the other startup communities around the world, so that if your startup idea is actually more relevant for being started in Shanghai, well, let's just go connect with the community we have in Shanghai. Or if you need core resources that are best found in Budapest in Hungary, well, let's drop into the Central European countries and the regional alumni and communities that we have there. And so we're finding that the concept of creating a future, leveraging these exponential technologies, is very powerful, and I haven't found anyone on the planet yet who doesn't want to at least be involved, and everyone has amazing ideas to contribute to it. There's no one that this excludes, and that's one of the challenges that we've had in the past, is being considered, you know, like an elitist organization that has super expensive programs that you know, only the richest people can come to. Well, it may seem that way, but actually, if you look at the activities and the people getting involved, we're going to impact everyone, right? We for our programs, for the graduate studies program, they have to do a team challenge. They have to form teams, and they have to come up with an idea to impact 1 billion people within 10 years. And the expectation is those are real ideas that they're going to continue forward with and make successful. And we put a lot of resources behind that. And you can't impact billions of people without touching everyone on the planet, right? I mean, maybe you could impact 1 billion just in India, but realistically, with the types of solutions we're talking about, this is a global movement that we're talking about. It's not just about starting little startup companies that make games. This is about creating solutions that are going to touch everyone. And so how do we get everyone engaged in the creation and the support and the mentoring and the helping build momentum of these solutions so that they can make them appropriate for their own communities in that endeavor to impact billions?
Amazing, Rob. I mean, if you have a couple of minutes, I'd like one final question, but at the same time, I don't want to be.
Yeah, sure. No, no. Yeah, I do have a couple of minutes. That's no problem.
Okay, thank you. So one last question would be, could you give some examples of companies that come out of, or projects or kinds of impacts that have come out of Singularity University that you're really proud of?
Yeah, sure. That is very easy to do. You know, we already have more than 30 official SU companies. So these are companies that have come out of our graduate studies program or have been started by alumni that came into our accelerator and into the community. But it's an incredible pipeline of ideas always, and so I'm guessing that number is going to grow to hundreds very, very rapidly. But a couple specific examples. Just last week, one of our startup companies that came out of project 3 years ago called Made in Space. It was a project idea that came out of the graduate studies program, and this team said, hey, you know, it's really expensive to send stuff into space, and one of the biggest challenges is that when things break up there, it's very dangerous, and to send a wrench into space or to send a specific part, it's incredibly prohibitive, and that's going to limit what we can do in space. And so the concept was, well, let's put 3D printers in space, because with a 3D printer, you can actually just send a design and build the part that you need out of whatever material that you have on hand. And so last week, Made in Space launched the first 3D printer to the International Space Station. So it was an amazing. Actually, we're here based at NASA Ames in Mountain View, California, and NASA had a huge party showcasing this company that came out of Singularity University, and we all watched the rocket launch, and over the next several weeks, they're going to be installing that 3D printer and running a bunch of interesting experiments on the space station. So that's just like, that was last week. That was really fun. Other projects that we have a really exciting company called Blue Oak Technology that came out of a project a couple of years ago and then continued to develop, where they looked at the incredible explosion of all of this electronics and smartphones and devices that we use. And we're already seeing stats where even in Africa we have like 70% penetration over the next couple of years across the continent with smartphones. It's blowing up, right? Which means there's a lot, and these things don't last forever, which means we have to throw them away. And currently, to recycle these things, it ends up getting shipped on a barge overseas to China or Indonesia and dealt with in pretty terrible, toxic, unethical ways. And so Blue Oak Technologies came up with this concept of, well, what if we treated this like a mining operation? We've been mining precious materials very efficiently out of the mountains for a long time. What if we took this and ground it back up into a slurry and then used existing super efficient techniques to extract those precious goods out of it in a super safe, localized, decentralized way? And so they are currently setting up their first facility in Arkansas in the United States at a local municipality to extract very important commodities and precious materials out of electronic waste. So I can easily see, as that pilot program is successful, we'll start seeing localized municipalities all over the world reclaiming the precious goods out of this waste and making it so much more safe and efficient process. So look forward to an interesting new commodities market with recycled materials. So that's going to be huge. In fact, they found that there is more gold in a kilogram of this electronic waste slurry than there is in a kilogram of gold ore. So that's an interesting stat. So that's a fun one. Other interesting projects. One that I'm always that I think is going to make a big impact in the world is a company called Modern Meadow, where Modern Meadow is tackling the hugely inefficient process of growing meat in the world. So to cook a hamburger, it really requires like 2,000 gallons of water, several hundred gallons of oil, 40 acres of land just to grow a cow. And then to slaughter the cow and to actually process the meat is a horrible, very unethical process in some industries. And there's also a lot of hormones and other chemicals that are used to grow that cow as fast as possible that we don't really even understand all the implications on our health. And we don't even know actually what's in that meat, truthfully, right? There's limited labeling and understanding of what's going into it. So Modern Meadow took a different approach. What if we take that exact same tissue that you're going to eat in that hamburger, or say a veal cutlet? You take that veal meat, which, you know, killing baby cows sounds like kind of a horrible, icky thing. I don't know how your ethics are, but I know Argentina has a great meat industry, so this is probably a little disruptive. But you take the same tissue that you would cut off of a cow, and you grow that tissue in a laboratory, in a highly efficient process that is super high quality, very clean. There's no genetic engineering. We're just growing that exact same tissue in a very efficient process. And then you sell it. So you're basically growing meat. It was never alive. The tissue was alive, but it was never a conscious being that walked around. And you sell it. And it's interesting, right now, I think anytime I ask a group of people how many people would eat meat that was grown in a lab, you know, maybe 2% or 5% of people would say, maybe I'll try it. I'm guessing in 5 years, and so they already have prototypes and it's starting to catch traction and they're still trying to make the process efficient. I'm guessing in 5 years, when we start to realize how bad a lot of the hormones and chemicals that go into a core of the meat industry today, how bad that is for our health, and how easy it is to quality control meat in a lab, and how much more efficient and ethical and how much better it is for our environment it would be to grow this meat in the lab, despite the fact that we can't even scale to the growing population of the planet with the same meat production as we currently have. So that's another problem that we have altogether. I'm guessing within 5 years, people will start to realize that actually this is a perfect solution. In fact, it's an amazing solution that is even better than anything we could have hoped for. So I'm excited about a couple of projects like that, and there are many, many others. You can go to the Singularity website to see them. And truly, these are not all based here, right? These are based all over the world. We've got some amazing alumni down in Argentina doing some pretty crazy projects too. Emiliano with his nanosatellite company, that's one to watch closely, right? And so this is another example where these technologies are democratized, good ideas come from everywhere, and so no matter where you live, you could change the future of humanity.
I think that phrase sums it up very, very nicely, and I think that you made it very clear that Singularity University is not about technology. It's really a fountain of hope. It's an organization that shows us that we can build a better future and we can all be part of it. So we have 600 million people in Latin America. Let's be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Neil, thank you so much for bringing hope and bringing so many good ideas to us, and congratulations on the amazing work you're doing.
Great. Thank you so much, Ignacio, for inviting me into this interview, and thank you so much for your support and for the incredible work that you're doing there, building a community and building awareness about the capabilities and the opportunities that this tsunami of new technologies really presents to all of us. So great work, congratulations, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.